Welcome to my tutorial for Jackal for the NES. And most of this footage is going to be from my first attempt that I made on this game, which was almost a 1cc attempt. But that was after completing Final Commando for the Famicom Disk System, which is basically the Japanese version of this game. I believe it was released a little earlier. So it's missing a lot of content. It has an entire stage cut out. And there's definitely some differences. There's a lot more traps and shit like that in the final stage, and the final stage is much, much longer. So I had to improvise all that since I got most of my practice from that version. That version requires you to complete it in 1cc, but it's a little bit shorter as well since there's some content cut. So after completing that, which took me about 2 hours to beat that Japanese version of the game, I came onto this game fresh since I hadn't played it in years, and I've only ever beaten this game on 2 players. So this was my first time working on it in a while and trying to beat it solo. So as soon as I came onto this after beating that Japanese version, I was able to get to the final stage with max lives. I had all 8 of my lives, which is the most lives you can hold, going into the final stage. But then, of course, I fucked up the final stage, and I didn't get the 1cc. I did end up beating the game on another continue, but I didn't get the 1cc, which was no continues used. Now, I wasn't going for a 1cc run or anything, but I always try to do it. If I can get it, I'll try to get it. But I did a separate run after that, and I got the 1cc run. But, yeah, so most of this footage up until the final stage, everything up until the final stage is from that first attempt after playing Final Commando, which is the Japanese version of this game. So that's all, this is all unedited footage from that first attempt, which was a solid attempt. It was actually better. That first attempt was better than my the next attempt I did when I actually got the 1cc. I actually had cleaner stage runs in this first attempt. With some improvisation and shit like that, I actually did better. So most of the footage is from that, and then the final stage footage is edited in. That's from my actual successful run of the final stage on my 1cc run. So that's where the footage is coming from for this run. It's not a straight run. But if you want to see my first time beating the game solo, which was definitely sloppier, where I used several continues on the final stage to beat it, you can check that out. And I also have the full 1cc run posted up that shows all the fuck-ups, and you can see all the close calls when things, got close to losing the 1cc run. Though I did pretty well. I didn't really start burning my lives until the final boss. And you're going to see that technique here. And I'm going to show an alternate technique for the final boss. Now, both techniques for the final boss I got from a great channel called You Can Beat Video Games. They did a tutorial on Jackal. And that's kind of what inspired me to start the game up again, as it was one of my favorite games from back in the day. So I wanted to beat it solo. And I figured I'd get some practice in with the Japanese version of the game. And it also counts as a separate kill for my kill list, which is filling out the Famicom Disk System list of games beaten, which is barely any entries. I'm also working on Super Mario Bros. 2 for Famicom Disk System, which is a much harder version of the original Super Mario Bros. So for this first boss, you want to try to use the trees for cover if you can. It really helps a lot if you can use the trees for cover and circle around. These guys are really aggressive, and they will take you out easily. Now, if you do die, you can use the temporary invincibility to finish them off very easily. But why lose a life here if you can avoid it? Now, in my actual 1cc run, I actually fucked up here and lost a life. Reason being, I never actually practiced this first boss with save states or anything. I didn't do any isolated practice. All my practice was pretty much from that Japanese version of the game, so I was rusty on that shit. But using those trees is a great way. The trees on the right side work great as cover, and you can take some shots at them from that. You pretty much need direct hits with either the missile or the grenade to damage them, and each tank takes 2 hits to destroy. So yeah, there's a good variety of footage here on the channel for this game and for that Japanese version. So check those out. I'll provide some links in the description when I finish this commentary. So the basics of the game is you have a machine gun, which I recommend if you have a rapid fire controller or a rapid fire setting on the emulator. It'll serve you best to put that rapid fire on both the missile grenade button and the machine gun. I always have the machine gun firing at all times. It's just useful because if small enemies walk into it or even larger enemies, they take some damage. So it's just good to have it going. The machine gun always fires straight up to the top of the screen. You cannot change the direction of it, but it's always worth it to have it going, you know. Aside from that, you have grenades or missiles. Now, you have grenades if you don't power them up. Once you get this little flashing man from these small houses, that gives you your missile power-ups. If you grab the first man, you will get just a regular standard base missile with no spread. Now, as you grab more men from the houses, it doesn't sound like a fucking good thing to do, but as you do that, you'll get spread to those missiles, so they will start to have some shrapnel that comes out. So after you get the first one, you get two-way spread of shrapnel coming out of the explosion, and when you get the second house after your base missile, you will get the full power-up of four-way spread. Now, one glitchy thing about this game is that when you're using the spread attack from the missile, if it's up high at the screen, you don't get the effect. So as you can see, I can't get it to work on those two turrets because they're too high up on the screen and I can't get close enough. You know, there I got the angle just right. But it can be a pain in the ass because it does nullify your spread effect if it's too high up on the screen where the explosion is. So be wary of that. It can get you killed. It has gotten me killed because I try to... My main strategy for this entire game, for 90% of the game, the trick is to scroll the screen very slowly and just take everyone out. That's the main strategy that I'd recommend for the game if you're looking to beat the game. It works extremely well. But there's a few areas where that's not good enough and you actually need to know what kind of bullshit surprises are coming up. So you do have to have some memorization, you know, to deal with those situations. And of course the bosses, you have to learn how to fight all the bosses. You can't just advance the screen slowly to beat the bosses, but you can for like 90% of the game. So, you know, that strategy, that's going to be mainly the strategy that I'm showing, and there's not going to be much to explain about a lot of that. So, yeah, basically, you know, when you get that first little house, that's your missile power-up, but the missile by itself without the power-ups is not great. It's faster than the grenades, but it has a limitation of not being able to go over barriers. The grenades can actually go above and over shit, like barriers and things like that, and hit enemies on the other side. So sometimes grenades can be better for that, you know, than just a base missile. The base missile's kind of shitty. It's not great. But luckily, it doesn't take too long usually before you find another little house like this where you can power up your missiles. Now, if you already have full missile power-up, which is the four-way spread, then you can still grab those little guys because you can drop them off for points. So it's still worth getting them. You want to try to drop them off at these rescue areas to get some points. Make sure you clear out this base area first, this landing pad. Clear out all the enemies first, as you want to do with these things, because this is actually a dangerous landing pad where a lot of enemies try to rush you. And if you just try to go straight there and drop the guys off without clearing everybody out, even if you clear out all the turrets, there's, you know, various vehicles and shit that will rush your position and try to kill you. It's pretty dangerous. So just take it slow and make sure that nothing is spawning around the area and just clear everything out. If you die, then you'll know for next time that you got to be more careful and take more of the enemies out. It's a trial and error, you know, type of game as well. You do have to learn what enemies are coming when. It's always the same, so you just got to memorize where enemies are coming sometimes. And it's really not a super hard game, so there's really not a ton of trial and error to memorize. It's kind of like you fuck up a few times and then you'll probably remember for the next time, and you know, most of it you're going to be able to manage with improvising, I think. I would say, you know, for me, I was able to improvise most of the game without even memorizing a lot of shit initially because I was just playing it very slow like this and taking out enemies, you know, slowly. You know, I don't try to rush. Now, later in the final stage, I use some rushing techniques, which I'll explain, and which are optional. You don't have to follow what I did. But, of course, since I'm basing the tutorial over the strategies I ended up using, I'm gonna recommend those strategies mostly. You know, I didn't try every strategy for every section or anything like that. I just basically explaining what I did. And I refined it a little bit by putting some better footage of some areas of my own gameplay. So make sure you go to the right over here and shoot around this area as you see me do, and you'll reveal a star. Get that star. That star is a 1-up. Now you see already by the end of the second stage, I almost have the max lives. My lives are already up to 7. And that's just from not dying and killing a lot of enemies and rescuing all the hostages, which is very easy to do. They're right on your path, so you can't really miss them. Now, if you get blown up with hostages, you will lose most of them, unfortunately. So for this, all you really need to do is put 3 missiles or 3 grenades in each one of the heads to take one out. So it's a total, I believe, of 12 missiles that you need, or 12 grenades, either way. If you have missiles, it's easier, especially with the spread shot, because the spread shot doesn't seem to hurt. The shrapnel that comes out doesn't seem to hurt the heads, but it will destroy the missiles coming out of the other heads, and it'll give you some breathing room to be able to get through there. Now, I was able, in another attempt, I got through those heads much more aggressively without even backing off pretty much, barely backed off. I was able to rush right through them with the spread missiles. So if you're aggressive, you can actually do it really well. I don't have that footage here because that was from another run, and I didn't splice that one, and I figured this was maybe a more realistic way to show it anyway, because unless you really are good at aggressive playing, it may not be the most feasible thing to try to pull off. It's probably easier to play it a little more careful. You just want to back off when those heads shoot out the missiles and use your machine gun to take out the missiles, and just take out each head as you can. The more of them you take out, the easier it gets, since there's less missiles flying around. You got to beware of tanks and things like that drive around too, so take those out as they appear. So yeah, already I have the max of 8 lives just by playing carefully. So you can see that what we've dealt with so far is really not that difficult if you take it slow. You can see I'm definitely not playing in any kind of speedrun method. I'm playing very carefully, very slow. And that's really what I recommend for people just trying to beat the game. Just take it slow. Take everything out and be patient. And a good way to approach these games is the way I like to approach these games is, do a save state run first. So the first time you play this game, don't even try to beat it. Just make save and load states on an emulator. And you want to make save states on parts that may be troublesome. Like when you get to a boss, make a save state if you think you need to practice that, and practice it until you have it down. And just practice troublesome parts with save states first. And once you've completed a practice run, especially of that final stage, you really want to save state on the final stage and really practice it and make sure you can do it. Because there's a lot of shit on the final stage that you want to be aware of and have strategies for. And once you have all that down, then you're ready to make full runs of the game. So at that point, an approachable way to do it is, if you don't want to burn yourself out, is, just do one full attempt a day, where you just, you exhaust all the continues. You have something like 3 continues or something like that. So just boot the game up and just play it until you run out of continues, and then that's it. If you beat it, you do, and if not, then, try it the next day. And it's an easy way to beat a lot of these kind of games instead of getting stressed out. Because, you start to get more burned out the more attempts you do. If you fail an attempt, you can get pissed off, and then it starts to kind of affect your performance, So if you don't have the patience for that, split it up a little bit and just make like one attempt a day. Because once you got the practice down, it's just a matter of time before you're going to, pull it off in a legit run. Try to take out all these submarines if you can as you're approaching upward through these bridges. It's a tricky area with all the submarines, so try to take them out with some diagonal grenades or diagonal missiles. Hopefully you have missiles, especially the spread shot. You want to try to keep that for as long as possible. And of course, collect all the people. And it's good to blow up the parked vehicles and shit too, just for the points. Because remember, after, I think it's the first 20,000 points, you get your first one up. But then after that, it might be every 50,000 points. Though I'm not 100% sure, but it is something like that. I know it's something like that. So the idea is you want to get those points by blowing up, by killing enemies too. It's good to kill enemies. Even if the enemies aren't in your way, it's good to kill them for the points, Especially if you're trying to do a 1cc run, which is no continues used. Now that first laser is a very tight timing. The very first laser. It's very easy to get killed on that because it's faster than the other ones. So just make sure that as soon as that first laser appears, you move immediately when it disappears. And you want to be parked very close to it so you're ready to move through it. And you just repeat that for all the lasers and try to clear out all the enemies you can. If you have the 4-way shot, it makes it a lot easier to clear everything out. I was actually using this newer joystick that I modded into one of my joystick bases. I have a Hori Wrap 4 joystick, but I've changed out all the parts, so it's pretty heavily modded. So I put a a Famitsu LS62 joystick in there. And that's kind of a hybrid joystick that Famitsu makes with a mix of it's kind of a mix of their various joystick springs and parts into one joystick. And, after doing some research, it seemed like it would be awesome for like bullet hells and shooter type of games, as they're used in a lot of arcades, those sticks. They're used in real arcade machines in Japan. So it seemed like a great stick, and I've been using it for everything now. It has a tighter tension. It feels great even for... It took me some adjustment, but it works great even on Super Mario Brothers Lost Levels. I was playing Super Mario Brothers 2 on the Famicom Disk System. I'm pretty far in that, and I'm working on that with that joystick. I'm really learning to use a joystick now for most of these kind of games, just like making a change. I always used pad, but I just wanted to try something different because I really like the feel of the joysticks. But it is more of a learning curve. And it worked great for this game, too. It felt great on this game. So for this part, you want to kind of shoot in the middle. Don't advance all the way. Hang back and try to get a shot in the middle so that you can reveal the star. You have to hit a certain area to reveal the star. Now, it's usually in the middle, but for some reason it didn't reveal for me here, as you can see. So I was like, fuck it, I just left. But usually there's a star in the middle of all those turrets. There's a star that you can reveal by shooting in the middle. And once you reveal it, you just collect the star, and it blows up all the turrets. It's a really easy way to deal with that. But I got fucked on that this time for some reason, and actually same thing happened to me again on my actual legit 1cc run, and I actually died in that instance. Now you see I had my first death here as well, which was a very sloppy death. But it is easy to just die if you miss a bullet. It's easy to fuck up. For this, you just want to take out all these turrets as soon as they sprout up. You want to have a grenade going at them or a missile. And it only takes one grenade or missile to take out each turret. Grenade is really the way to go. Grenade or missile. You don't really want to fuck around with machine gun on it too much. It's better just to get a grenade in there. It's faster. Or a missile. Now, the only thing with this boss, it's quite simple, but the only thing is just memorizing where the bullets spread. That's all. You want to memorize the safe spots to park. There's safe spots between the bullet gaps, as each turret, I believe, fires a 3-way bullet spread. So you just want to be in those gaps. And, that's just something you can practice with save states if you need to. I was able to just, basically feel it out. It didn't take me long to learn that. So, most of the game I didn't practice with save states, but I did practice I think the only part that I practiced with save states was the final stage. And that was, of course, on the Famicom Disk version, which was a Japanese version, so it's quite a bit different. So as I said, I was underprepared for the extra content in the US version, but I just improvised and was able to by playing, very carefully, as you see me playing, I was able to basically just deal with whatever came up. Now for this beginning part, there's at least one launcher you want to take out. There's a missile launcher underneath the water. You want to take it out as you saw me do, otherwise it'll keep shooting missiles. The water also makes you drive slower, so be aware of that. I destroy the rocks just for some extra points. You can just leave them alone. For this part, you want to get all the way on the left and be ready to take out that parked vehicle that shoots tons of cannonballs. So just be on the left side and you'll easily deal with that. It won't be able to reach you. As you can see, a lot of this game is positioning and just slowly creeping up the screen. That's really what a lot of the game is. And there's going to be like a few parts where you do really need to know what you're doing, but you can really improvise a lot in this game. There's not tons of surprise attacks and shit like that, but they do exist in this game. The final stage has a lot of that shit, so that's why the final stage you do want to have that mostly memorized with some practice. But yeah, it's really the game. It shouldn't be too bad for players with some experience in these type of games. With good save state practice. Practicing the stages you need to practice and the bosses you need to practice. Like I said, just do a practice run first. Don't even try to beat it. And then you'll, after maybe an hour of practicing through the game, you'll know what to expect. You should be able to beat it pretty fast after that. I believe the game gives you 3 continues. If you shoot the train at the right part on the engine, it'll destroy the entire train and you get a lot of points for that, so it's worth doing. The train also shoots at you, so you got to be careful. If you don't take the train out, it can be a pain in the ass. Now use this corner here and take that guy out. If you go around that corner too fast, you'll get killed. That's a cheap little trick, a cheap trap. But as long as you shoot from that corner, the enemy won't be able to reach you, especially if you have a spread missile. Now you see my shrapnel wasn't even coming out of my explosion for a while because of the way the screen was for whatever reason. And I think sometimes the recording of this game doesn't pick up some of the shrapnel too, so it's a bit of a deceptive mix. Like sometimes it doesn't pick up on the recording, other times it doesn't pick up in the game. The game won't count it because the explosion is on the edge of the screen or some shit. It's kind of glitchy with that. So yeah, make sure you clear everything out and then, drop off whoever you rescued. Now, in my case, the points don't really help me at this stage because I already have the max of 8 lives. So I cannot gain any more lives. The points would only help me if I happened to die sometime soon and my score was at that threshold where the next life was going to pop or something. But it's not hugely helpful when you have the max lives. So for this boss, I like to fire 1 straight shot and 1 diagonal shot and just do half circles around the sides. So I do a half circle, then I do a half circle back in the other direction. And that's it. By doing that, it makes it so the bullets, have trouble trying to reach me, as you can see. And then I half circle back, as you see. And I try to get in 2 shots each time. I'll do 1 straight shot and 1 diagonal. And you want to go for direct hits, whether it be the grenade or the missile. The grenades are slower, so you may not be able to get in the diagonal shot. But as long as you get in 1 shot, it doesn't take too long to take down. I don't think it takes that many shots. Maybe it takes like 6 shots or something. I don't think it takes a lot of shots from what I remember. But yeah, it's not too hard if you do that. As far as the little men, you want to take them out with machine guns and shit like that. Don't try to really... You don't need to use missiles on them. You can machine gun them or run them over, the little men. So regular-sized human opponents are the only ones you can run over with the Jeep. You can just run them over if you want. When they're about to flash is when they're about to shoot. So as long as they're not flashing, it's safe to run them over. But if they're flashing, then you might want to back off and wait for them to shoot first. Or just shoot them. So again, more just creeping through the screen, slowly advancing. And if you do use a continue, you'll start back at the beginning of the stage. And you'll have your default lives, which I believe is 4 starting lives, which is decent. But it's not. It's actually, in some ways, it's easier to 1cc this game because the stages prior to the final stage really aren't that hard, in my opinion. So it's pretty easy to get to the final stage with between 6 and 8 lives stocked up. And if you do that, you're going to be at a bigger advantage than having to continue on the final stage, which means you have to start the final stage over with just 4 default lives. That's going to be a lot harder. So in some ways, it's actually easier to 1cc the game and not lose a continue. Just racking up as many lives as you can for the final stage. I mean, at least I found it easier to do it that way. When I had to use my continues, it did make things harder. In my first run, I had to use 2 continues to beat it, so I had to, beat it with the default lives, which is, harder. The boss can eat up a lot of lives, the final boss. So there is, as you can see, a star that you can pick up that you can reveal by shooting shit. As you see, I revealed it. I'm going to go back and get that in a moment. That's an extra life. Now, I don't actually need that, but I'm going to get it anyway, just to, you'll see it. But I don't even need it because I have all my lives. And it's not going to do anything. It may give me some points or some shit. But I think I go down and get it anyway, just for the fuck of it. It didn't even give me any points. It didn't give me anything because I had full lives. But that's how you get it anyway. So if you need a life, it's a good place to get a free one. Some of those stars, they're just revealed by shooting certain parts of the screen, I believe. And they do different things. There's 3 different types. There's one that will give you a full missile upgrade with all the shrapnel, the 4-way shot. Even if you just have grenades, that's a great one. But none of them appear super often, but they're good when they appear. Some of them will clear all the enemies on screen. And then there's a few 1-up stars, the green stars. There's only a few of them in the game, I believe. I only found maybe, I think, 2 of them in the game. and those will give you 1-ups. So that's another good way to get lives. It'll give you a few extra lives. It makes a big difference if you're trying to do a 1cc run, because those extra lives can save your ass. 2 extra lives can be a big difference. But of course, they're only useful if your lives aren't maxed out. So this gets dangerous. Sometimes you get in these dangerous situations where the bullets don't really calm down, and you just have to try to get in a gap fast and take things out. And that's where the game can get dangerous. So sometimes you just have to go for it. You have to wait for a gap and just go for it and just, make accurate shots. Don't miss your shots or you'll probably get killed. Machine gun also works on all the enemies pretty much. So sometimes you can just, drive away from an enemy while machine gunning it. Since your machine gun always fires straight up, it's a good tactic to just drive away from a tank and use the machine gun to take it out. If you don't want to try to face it head on. The spread shot goes through walls, so it gives you that grenade effect of being able to fire through walls. Or in the grenade's case, it goes over the walls, but, same type of effect. So the best weapons are definitely the spread missiles. Now, I got a little too close there because what happens is the game doesn't show the turrets on their bases until you get to a certain distance. So you can think maybe there's no turret there, or maybe I already killed it. So, you got to be careful with that. So you see there, I did lose a life. It can get tricky, Sometimes it's easy to lose lives on random areas. But it will at least show how to defeat the boss of the area with just grenades. So I guess it's useful that I died there for the tutorial. So take this part slow. It is kind of dangerous. You do have to do a lot of dodging and taking shit out. I recommend not opening that small house because inside is a tank. So unless you want a tank to chase you around, don't do it. If you want extra points, I guess you can destroy it and then kill the tank. But there's better ways to get points. So you can take these turrets out with a machine gun. That's the only way to really get at them. Unless you have maybe spread missile, probably will work. But if not, just use your machine gun to shoot through the chain link fence. Take them out. Now once you clear this area, still be careful because there's still jets and shit coming through here. And there's a few stray bullets on the bottom of the screen that I didn't deal with. So it's a little dangerous to drop guys off here. But try to clear everything out. Now, if you have 8 lives, don't even bother dropping the men off, because why would you put yourself at risk of losing a life anyway, just to drop the guys off? It doesn't really make any sense to do it. In my case, I could use the points to get back up to 8 lives, so for me it's kind of useful. Okay, yeah, actually I did get missiles again. I think I may have got them when I dropped people off at the base. When you do that, I think sometimes it upgrades your missile as well. Whenever it happens, I'm never sure how exactly it worked, but it happens sometimes when I'm dropping people off. I'll get an upgrade. So you can see this is kind of a safe spot. I'm staying just out of the range of the bullets. It's not completely safe, but it is if you stay out of range of the bullets. The bullets can only travel a certain distance. That goes for all the bullets from all the turrets in the game. There's a limited distance. Same with the guys that shoot. Everybody has a limited bullet distance. So you can stay just out of range and just shoot at these garages. The idea here is that all you have to worry about destroying is the 4 garages. Once you destroy these 4 little garages, you will only have to shoot the red gate in the middle of the screen. And then you'll end the stage. So you can ignore the turrets if you want. I would recommend taking out those turrets that are like left and right of the red gate. I would probably recommend taking those out to make things easier. But you really don't have to do it. I didn't even bother with it, Now, initially when I got to this final stage, I had all 8 lives, as you can see in that previous clip of the semifinal stage. This is the final stage, but you see in the semifinal stage clip, I had 8 lives when I beat it. I think I got a 1-up from beating the boss. So I came here with 8 lives. But now in this edited footage, I added in my final stage run instead. So that shows my final stage run on my successful 1cc playthrough. So that's what this is. And it wasn't a perfect run of the final stage by any means, but it was pretty solid. So this is a stage where you really want to use save states to memorize the you want to memorize the location of a lot of enemies, because there's a lot of surprises on this stage. And there's certain maneuvers and things you want to practice, like grabbing the 4-way missile shot is really useful. It's tricky to grab if you don't practice it, though. Or at least watch my video, and then you'll have a good idea what to do when you get there, and it shouldn't be too hard to grab it. But you want to make sure you're able to do that. So just, keep moving slow and taking everything out. That same strategy applies for this stage as well. It's just more dangerous. And there's a few surprises that if you're not expecting, it's easy to get blindsided. And especially on this final stage, you see I'm starting this final stage with just grenades. You really don't want to, you really, it's better if you can start this final stage with the missiles. But grenades are fine. You can beat everything in this stage with grenades just fine. You just have to learn it. I always take out this right turret so I have a little breathing room to rescue these guys. I don't even bother with the one on the left. It doesn't really shoot far enough. So take this conveyor belt. Make sure you take out the tanks and the regular soldiers before you go through the gate up above. So on this little right side here, it's good to go up here. It's a dead end, but it allows you to take out a lot of enemies before going to the left side of the screen. So I recommend coming here first. And, take out all the enemies you can through these little gates. If you just have the base missile, you won't be able to do that. But as long as your missile has some spread shot capability, or you have just the regular grenades, you can take out a lot of enemies from that position. Take out these turrets right away, if you can. You don't really need to take out those turrets. I mean, you can just leave. It comes down to if you want to drop off the guys at this base. I think I ended up skipping the base, because there's constant helicopters and shit through this area. I think I said fuck it, because it's real dangerous to try to get points there. So I actually just rushed through a lot of this shit. As you can see, I'm driving through all this area. Because, see, I lost a life here, which was already getting sloppy. So I think I decided, fuck it, I'm just going to jet through. So that is a valid strategy, but it's more dangerous. What I would normally do here is I would take out the turrets with careful grenading, diagonal grenades, and retreating. Grenade and retreat. Until I took out all the turrets. Because if you go down far enough in the bottom of the screen, the bullets will disappear. But I didn't do it here. But I would recommend, probably doing it that way. And there's going to be another technique that I'm not going to be showing in this video, but I'll explain it. Because I'm going to have a four-way missile for the part that I wanted to explain, but I'm not going to be able to demonstrate it because it's a strategy you would use if you only had grenades for the section. Make sure you take out those helicopters. You see I almost died from that helicopter. They're very aggressive. So up here, take out all these guys. Take out the tanks, the jeeps, all the enemies. And stay within these barriers. Now, once you do that, make sure you take all these enemies out. Take out that tank. Now just fire a grenade up at the top and reveal the star. Now retreat back down. Make sure there's no bullets coming out. Grab the star and hold down so that you're driving away immediately after you grab the star. That's how you get that. You want to make sure there's no bullets when you're going up there, though. It's super hard to grab it. If it may not even be possible to grab it when there's tons of bullets. And you really don't need to take out all those turrets. You just want to grab it and get the fuck out. So just do it as you saw me do it there. The same, the same order that I did everything is the way to do it. So take this slow and take out all these guys. Up here is one of the more dangerous areas of the stage with these missile dispensers. What you want to do is get right up to the gate and use your four-way that you just got to take out those missile dispensers. It's much harder if you only have grenades, so I really recommend learning how to get those missiles and keeping them. You don't need to, but it just makes things a lot easier. Because you see, I use that four-way shot. By shooting it against the barrier, the four-way spread will spread out and take out those missile launchers. So that's what I did for that. I recommend now carefully taking out the guns on both sides. It's really quite easy to bring the 4-way missile here because of that star upgrade. Once you know how to get that, it's pretty easy to survive up until this point. But of course, it is possible that you'll fuck up and have just grenades. It's a bad situation. You don't really want to do that. But I have gotten through like that before. You just have to play more careful and really try to take out those missile dispensers first thing, because those are like some of the more dangerous enemies with those homing missiles. They will tail you relentlessly until you take them out. So you have to machine gun them or shoot them with a missile to take the missiles out. So for this part, you see you can carefully advance the screen, but you're not seeing me do it fully here because I have a spread missile. If I only had grenades for this part, what I would do is go all the way down until the bullets disappear, even farther down, like this. Make the bullets disappear and then come back up. Fire one diagonal missile to take a turret out, then go back down and, despawn the bullets again, come back up and take another diagonal shot. Now, whether you land your shot or miss it, you want to retreat back down. You don't want to try taking multiple shots, unless you're confident with doing it. But if you want to play it real safe and you just have grenades especially, just take one diagonal shot and then go back down and despawn all the bullets and then just go back up. If you keep doing that, you can easily take out all the turrets with just grenades. And that's one of the hardest parts in the stage, or in the game. It's a tricky part if you don't have a strategy for it. So now is the final boss. So make sure you take out all the enemies first. You want to clear out all the tanks and the soldiers. And just slowly advance the screen. Make sure you clear everything out. Now is the boss fight. So for the boss, you just have to land 13 grenades or missiles in that middle console at the top. So what I do is I ignore the turrets. You can take out the turret guns if you want. But I find it easier just to leave the turret guns alone and stay in the middle of the screen. If you stay in the middle, the turret guns can never reach you. You just don't want to go outside the middle space. You can see where, if you look carefully, you'll see where the turrets shoot. You see they never shoot in the middle section of the screen. So that allows you to fire all your grenades or missiles up at the top, and 13 hits will take that first form out. Make sure you circle around and take out the tanks as you're doing that. You don't want to ignore those tanks. So now I had 5 lives to burn for this part, so I didn't use the safe method. But I'm going to show the safe method after the video. After the main video, I will show the safe method. But this method is using the machine gun, which actually does a lot of damage to this boss, using machine gun and just burning lives, basically, and grenades. So I'm just staying in the middle. And if you stay in the middle, you'll rarely ever get hit by the flame attack, as long as you keep moving left to right. I did it pretty sloppy here. I have another video where I did both forms without dying, but that was on the Japanese version. I didn't practice the US version to that extent, so I don't have footage like that for the US version. I'm not sure if there's a difference between both versions as far as how the bosses play. I think there's a little bit. I think there's more enemies in the US version, the first phase. But yeah, if you have lives to burn, you can just stay in the middle, machine gun, and keep throwing grenades, and even if you die a decent amount, you're still going to do more damage to the boss. So you will still win. But if you don't have a lot of lives to burn like I did, then there's a safe method, which I'm going to show. You'll see it at the end of the video. I will show you the safe method. Now, both of these strategies I got from a great channel called You Can Beat Video Games. They did a video on Jackal. And I used both of the final boss strategies. As you can see, I used the more aggressive method there. And I'll link my no damage run of both bosses as well for the Japanese version, even though it is different. There are some similarities. So the safe method, I'm not going to show the whole thing because it takes really long to kill the boss this way, but it's very safe. And all you have to do is just retreat to the bottom edge of the screen on the right, and then just go up and shoot a grenade. And that's pretty much it. You just go up to the top, shoot a grenade, and go back down. And eventually you'll get better with your timing. You'll know you landed a hit when it makes that... there's a distinct sound that it makes when you land a grenade or a missile. So if you hear that, you know you're getting the hits in. And it may take a while before you're able to actually land the grenade on the tank and get those hits, because it is a little tricky to do. But once you get into a rhythm with it, you'll pretty much get the grenades in most of the time. So you'll start doing more consistent damage. But this is the idea. You fire up and then you retreat back down. And you just got to watch where the bullets are. Because the bullets can't reach you in that bottom right corner. That's the safe spot. And the fire will never get you here. So, you keep retreating back to that safe spot, you'll never take damage. Once I did this method, I didn't die at all on the boss. So it's a very safe way to do it. This is the method that I used for my first time beating the game solo. So that was before I did the 1cc. Then after that I did the 1cc and I used a more aggressive technique. Since I had a lot of lives to burn, I did much better overall on that run. So, but if you don't have lives to burn, this is a really safe way to do it. You'll want to use save states still to practice and get the rhythm down so that you know when to move up. It's just a pattern, and you'll learn it by practicing, and I recommend practicing with save states. And you can get into a rhythm with it eventually. You see I'm landing more direct hits now, but it took a while for me to kind of get a rhythm. But that's it. You'll just be doing this for a long time. You'll do this for a few minutes straight, but the boss will die. When it turns red, it's getting closer to death, and then when it turns pink, it's in its last phase. But yeah, it does take a while. But yeah, that's it. So with those strategies, you should definitely be able to beat the game without too much trouble. Just do a practice run first. And if you're doing a 1cc, you really only need to make it to the final form of the final boss. And once you do that, you can just use the safe technique, and you should be able to do it easily at that point. Even if you get there with 0 lives on your counter. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.